Good evening, and welcome to the April 19th, 2017 Radnor Board of Ethics meeting. Shall we begin with the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. What a small audience. I take that as a good sign. So I'm calling the meeting to order. We have two, I assume everybody has the agenda. There's two items on the agenda that we're going to deal with tonight. As was the case at our last public meeting, you don't see public comment on here, but let me assure everyone that before any vote is taken, there will be an opportunity for public comment. And should by any chance, some strange chance that there's no vote at all, we will allow for public comment. So, with that being said, the first order of business is pursuant to a complaint filed by Mr. Arthur Hepburn against former Commissioner Schaefer. Is it Austin? Apologies, Austin. I thought that was him. Against former Commissioner Schaefer. The Radnor Township Board of Ethics is meeting tonight to determine whether probable cause exists to believe that a violation of the Township's ethics code has occurred. In accordance with its rules, the board initiated a preliminary inquiry and convened a meeting at which it reviewed various documents submitted to it, including the initial complaint, the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting of December 11, 2017, the advice of counsel received by former Commissioner Schaefer from the State Ethics Committee, and the written opinion of the Township Solicitor to former Commissioner Schaefer. Mr. Hepburn's complaint against former Commissioner Schaefer, dated November 30th, 2017, was filed on December 11th, 2017, and on December 13th, Mr. Hepburn and former Commissioner Schaefer were notified that the Board of Ethics received the complaint and that it would undertake a preliminary inquiry to determine whether probable cause existed to believe that a violation of the Ethics Code had occurred. The complaint alleges that former Commissioner Schaefer had an actual or apparent conflict of interest when voting on issues pertaining to the trustees of the University of Pennsylvania, owners of the property at 145 King of Prussia Road, in violation of Section 39-5 of Radnor's Code of Ethics and Section 9.05 of Radnor's Charter. Section 39-5 of the Code of Ethics and Section 9.05 of the Home Rule Charter make it a violation of the Code to take any action which would constitute a conflict of interest. Specifically, Section 39.5 provides as follows: no official or employee, whether paid or unpaid, shall engage in any business transaction or shall have a financial or other interest, direct or indirect, which in any way involves the proper discharge of his official duties in the public interest or would tend to impair his independent judgment or action in the performance of his official duties. Section 9.05 of the Charter similarly prohibits any action by an elected or appointed official of the Township that would constitute a conflict of interest. In his complaint, Mr. Hepburn alleges that former Commissioner Schaefer had a conflict of interest when she voted on December 11th to adopt Ordinance 2016-13, which amended the PLO, Planned Laboratory Office District, on issues pertaining to the trustees of the University of Pennsylvania because her husband is the owner of a sporting goods company that is a vendor to the trustees of the University of Pennsylvania. The minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting of December 11th state, Commissioner Schaefer also announced that she has received an opinion from the State Ethics Board, and their written opinion is that she does not have a conflict. The Township Solicitor also gave Commissioner Schaefer a written opinion that there was not a conflict. Solicitor Rice agreed with Commissioner Schaefer. The board has now completed its preliminary inquiry and will now deliberate and make a decision whether probable cause exists to believe that a violation of the Ethics Code has occurred. If it finds that probable cause exists with regard to any or all of the allegations, the board will then initiate a full investigation in accordance with its rules and regulations with regard to the allegations where probable cause was found to exist. With all that being said, do I have a motion that the board does or does not find that probable cause exists to believe that Commissioner Schaefer violated the Code of Ethics and that a full investigation of Mr. Hepburn's allegations should be initiated? Anybody?
Yeah, thanks, Martin. I make a motion that probable cause does not exist.
I second.
We have a second. Do we have comment?
Oh, yeah, I'll just, share what we know, that we have a written opinion from both the Township Solicitor as well as the State Board of Ethics that there was no conflict for Commissioner Schaefer. And I don't think it's the duty or responsibility of this board to overrule the State Ethics Board and the Township Solicitor.
Joe, any comment? No? Lisa? I have a brief comment then. I totally agree. We did, Ms. Schaefer referenced the opinion that she got from the state of Pennsylvania as well as Mr. Rice a couple times in meetings. We did receive a copy of that, redacted in certain areas that were not really relevant to the opinion. And the opinion is quite clear with regard to her conflict. Now, that being said, I understand entirely why Mr. Hepburn would have filed the complaint, because on previous occasions, Mrs. Schaefer did recuse herself in similar to what any objective observer would describe as similar circumstances. But the facts are that they were different here. I think it would have been nice if Mrs. Schaefer, Commissioner Schaefer, had released that opinion to the public. It would have saved everybody a lot of time. Once we received it, we asked that she do that, and she declined. I think that's unfortunate because, there's money involved here, there's time, there's effort, there's angst, and I think it's a little bit abusive of the public, but she declined. But if you read that opinion, and as a result of her not releasing, you have to take her word for it, it is unambiguous, in my opinion, and therefore I would vote in favor of finding no probable cause to go forward that there was a conflict of interest. No further comment? Public comment?
Hi, good evening. Kelly Martin. I'm from the 7th Ward.
Yeah.
And I think
Welcome.
the part that confused me the most was any time that, that Ms. Schaefer would reference the opinion, she would say Penn Medicine, that she was voting on Penn Medicine versus the trustees of the University of Pennsylvania. So because she didn't release it, and I'm sure you've all seen it, that was just the main concern was Penn Medicine is a fictitious entity that is under the umbrella of the trustees of the University of Pennsylvania. So if she had asked the State Ethics Board, do I have a conflict if I vote on Penn Medicine as a separate company, then I'm sure then they would say, no, that's fine. You don't sell to them. So just as far as going forward, because any of the commissioners can have conflicts any time. And so is there any way to clarify whether or not the opinion stated Penn Medicine?
Well, in this case, I think one of the reasons that Commissioner Schaefer felt reluctant initially even to give it to us is that it contained some financial information, probably relating to her husband's business, and that was all redacted, and we were fine with that. You can read the opinion and clearly come to find out what the logic is with regard to the conclusions. Unfortunately, she chose not to release it to the public. I would hope that in the future, commissioners in similar circumstances would do that, and if there's something necessary to be redacted, they would do that. That's fine. But that didn't happen here, and so your confusion and concern and not being clear on it is totally appropriate because you don't have the benefit of reading it. And
right, and so then I don't know, is it because it comes down to it wasn't enough money? Because it sounded like
there is
ethics code is any money.
No. The money reference was to what it costs this township to hear this. This had nothing to do with whether it was X dollars or Y dollars. The problem, of course, is because the evidence that is received is confidential, the board can't go into what the letter actually said. But the reference to money, and I picked it up when you said it, is what it's costing the township to go through this process.
That was my reference to, I have a little chart on the legal fees associated with all of these complaints, and so that's what when I said money, that's what I was referencing, not the money that was involved in whatever her husband may or may not have made on the transaction.
Oh, I thought you were saying that the reason it couldn't be released was because there was financial information.
There is that. That's part of what's redacted in there, yes. Well, looks like what's redacted, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay. With that, can we take a vote? All in favor of the motion? In favor, say aye. Aye. Aye? Anyone opposed? No. The motion passes. The second order On the second item on the agenda relates to a complaint from Mr. McCone and Mr. Beaudry. And I have to apologize in advance because I have something quite substantive to read because it actually involves 8 different complaints packaged into one. So bear with me. I will try and go slowly and hopefully make it all clear as we go through each one. Pursuant to a complaint filed by Douglas McCone and James Beaudry against Commissioner Richard Booker, the Radnor Township Board of Ethics is meeting tonight to determine whether probable cause exists to believe that a violation of the Township's Ethics Code has occurred. Mr. McCone and Beaudry's complaint against Commissioner Booker is dated October 13th, 2017, and was received the same day. On October 17th, Messrs. McCone and Beaudry and Commissioner Booker were notified that the Board of Ethics received the complaint and that the board would undertake a preliminary inquiry to determine whether probable cause exists to believe that a violation or violations of the Ethics Code have occurred. In accordance with its rules, the board initiated a preliminary inquiry and convened a meeting on January 30th, 2018 to interview Mr. McCone and Mr. Beaudry and to receive whatever additional documentation they wish to present to the board. Prior to the meeting of January 30th, the board received a letter from Joseph Santoroni, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, of the firm Marshall, Dennehy, Werner, Coleman, and Goggin, who was retained to represent Commissioner Booker, requesting that the complaint be dismissed. The board also received a supplemental letter from Mr. McCone, which enclosed additional documentation. The Board of Ethics invited Commissioner Booker to be interviewed by the board, which is our common practice. However, he declined, although his attorney provided a letter dated March 27th setting forth Commissioner Booker's position on each of the allegations. Excuse me. The McCone-Beaudry complaint alleges 8 separate incidents where it is alleged that Commissioner Booker violated the Township Code of Ethics. The first allegation alleges possible criminal conduct by Commissioner Booker. The Board of Ethics has no jurisdiction over potential criminal conduct and did not consider that allegation. Allegations 2 and 3, in our view, can be considered together. They allege that on April 5th, 2016, Commissioner Booker directed the staff to install stop signs at the Cricket Lane Pine Tree Road intersection, and that on April 13th, he directed the staff to remove a stop sign on Spruce Tree Lane at the Spruce Tree Lane Pine Tree Road intersection. Both of these acts were alleged to be in violation of Home Rule Charter Section 2.09.h, which provides in relevant part that no commissioner acting individually shall seek publicly or privately to direct the acts of township officials and employees. Attached to these allegations as exhibits are an email dated April 4th, 2016 to Robert Zinkowski and Robert Hale in which Commissioner Booker states, "In light of the foregoing, and as Commissioner for the 2nd Ward, I am directing that the stop sign in only the northbound direction on Pine Tree, located at the intersection with Spruce Tree, be immediately removed. With regard to the stop sign at the Spruce Tree Lane Pine Tree Road intersection, Commissioner Booker emailed Robert Zinkowski and Superintendent Colarulo on April 4th, 2016 as follows. In light of the foregoing, as Commissioner for the 2nd Ward, I am directing that the stop sign in only the northbound direction on Pine Tree, located at the intersection with Spruce Tree, be immediately removed. Thank you for your attention to this matter." In his response of March 27th, 2018, Mr. Santoroni stated that with respect to the sign, at no time did Commissioner Booker ever direct anyone to ignore any laws or violate the township ordinance. His message to the township manager was merely advocating for his constituency and the desire to control speeds on Pine Road. Complaint 4, halfway, alleges that Commissioner Booker solicited the township manager to violate a township ordinance and remove the Spruce Tree Lane Pine Tree Road stop sign without taking the appropriate legal action excuse me, because stop signs can only be removed by ordinance. In doing so, Commissioner Booker is alleged to have violated Section 39-3.b of the Radnor Code of Ethics. That section provides as follows: officials and employees shall under no circumstances exceed their authority or breach the law or ask others to do so. In response, Attorney Santoroni states that At no time did Commissioner Booker ever direct anyone to ignore any laws or violate the township ordinance. Complaints 5 and 6 allege that Commissioner Booker directed, solicited, or encouraged his son to have the Radnor police issue a police report without payment of a fee in violation of Section 39-4.b of the Radnor Code of Ethics and Section 9.04.a, parenthetical 1, parenthetical 2, and Section 905-a, parenthetical 2. Section.
You want me to read the rest of this?
It would be terrific.
Sick,
Thank
okay.
you. You have it? Okay, great.
Yeah,
Thank
I've
you.
got it. Section 39-B.4 states in relevant part that no official or employee shall request or permit the use of township-owned vehicles, equipment, materials, or property for personal convenience or profit, except when such services are available to the public generally. Section 9.05.a, parentheses 2, states in relevant part, no elected or appointed township official or employee shall receive any money, service, or other consideration in connection with such appointment or employment. Finally, Section 9.04.a, parentheses 1, states in relevant part that no person shall be accorded favored treatment in employment or appointment because of family relationship. The allegation is that Commissioner Booker directed his son to contact the police and state that as a commissioner's son, he was entitled to the issuance of a police accident report without the payment of a fee, and that subsequently Commissioner Booker directed the superintendent of police to deliver the report to Commissioner Booker's home without the payment of the required fee. Attorney Santarone responded to these complaints that Commissioner Booker's son contacted the township on his own and was merely attempting to obtain the requisite document to file the applicable insurance claim against the offending driver. Commissioner Booker never asked Superintendent Colarulo or anyone else in the township for special treatment and was never asked to pay anything to receive a copy of the police report. Allegation 7 alleges that Commissioner Booker requested Superintendent Colarulo to prepare a special decal for him, reading, quote, Radnor Township Commissioner, end quote, and place it on the window of his car in violation of Section 39-4.b of the Radnor Code of Ethics, requiring fair and equal treatment of all similarly situated individuals, and Section 2.09.h, which provides that no commissioner will direct another employee to take certain action. And finally, Section 9.05.a, parentheses 1, which provides that no township official shall act in a way that realizes gain or an advantage. Attorney Santarone responds that Commissioner Booker requested the township administration to provide something so that he could park in the lower township lot without being towed or ticketed. He states that it's Commissioner Booker's understanding that multiple decals were made at a minimal cost and were available to any of the commissioners. The final allegation is that the actions of Commissioner Booker, in addition to violating specific sections that were cited in the complaint, also violated Section 39-2 of the Radnor Code of Ethics, which provides in relevant part that public officials are bound to observe in their official acts the highest standards of morality and to discharge faithfully the duties of their office, regardless of personal considerations, recognizing that the public interest must be their primary concern. Although Attorney Santarone did not respond to allegation number 8 specifically, Attorney Santarone, on behalf of Commissioner Booker, argues that the McCone-Bowdry complaint is a baseless and purely political attack. The fact that the complaint was filed 2 weeks prior to the November 7, 2017 election, where Mr. Booker was running for re-election clearly demonstrates the intent to negatively affect his re-election campaign. The board has now completed its preliminary inquiry and will now deliberate and make a decision whether probable cause exists to believe that a violation of the Ethics Code has occurred as a result of any or all of the allegations in the McCone-Bowdry complaint. If it finds that probable cause exists with regard to any of the allegations, the board will then initiate a full investigation in accordance with its rules and regulations with regard to the allegations where probable cause was found to exist. And not myself, but Chairman Heldring would say, do I have a motion that the board does or does not find that probable cause with regard to any or all of the allegations in the McCone-Bowdry complaint exist to believe that Commissioner Booker violated the Radnor Code of Ethics and that a full investigation of Messrs. McCone and Bowdry's allegation should be initiated.
So thank you for taking over for me there. I'm not sure I was going to make it. So there's a lot there. Let me assure people that as we go through this, we will try and be specific, not just say complaint number 2 or 3, but talk about which each is. If there's clarifications required during public comment, we're happy to provide that. We would like to deal with them together in a group, which doesn't mean that we would vote all one way or another way. We could vote on some one way and some another way, but we would still vote as a group on them. And so it's similar to the way the Board of Commissioners has a consent agenda. So unless any of my fellow board members wants to withdraw or pull one aside, I would make a motion in terms of my view of the 7 allegations, and we see if we go from there. If we have some unanimity, then maybe we go forward. If we need to, if there's clearly disagreement, we will start pulling them out and dealing with them separately. So if everybody's okay with that? So and I'll deal with it, I'll just say where I am on all 7, and then when we get into more discussion, I'll say why. I would make a motion that there is probable cause with regard to 2, 3, and 4. They are specifically the ones relating to directing, but not probable cause with regard to 5 through 8. Do I have a second, or do I have debate?
Well, you need a second before anybody can debate.
Okay. Sorry. Do I have a second? If not, then maybe we should begin to discuss where there's a disagreement, and so we could start pulling those out. So maybe Joe, do you want to go first? Or sorry, Jeff, do you want to go first?
Well, do we want to take these one at a time then?
Well, maybe if this is to work, maybe tell me where,
Or
of the
we
7, where you might agree with me and the ones you don't.
Well, we can start. I believe you.
I said 2, 3,
you
and
made a
4,
motion for
yes.
approval calls for 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
The motion was to read just 2, 3, and 4. Yes, I would second that, and I agree on counts 2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
That there is probable cause. The rest, I do not necessarily agree with you.
So you would say there's probable cause on the others as well?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. And Joe, how are you? Where are you?
I disagree. I'm having a problem, as I think I mentioned earlier, between the concept of ethics and, let's call it, inappropriate or bad behavior, people overstepping, not following protocols. Maybe my definition of ethics is a little narrower, but in any case, I have trouble justifying expending further township resources on something that, although is not baseless, as you mentioned, the 2 words baseless and political, not baseless, but political. And so
So you're
not
struggling
in
with 2,
agreement.
3, and 4.
I'm
And
not in
Lisa,
agreement.
how's your view?
So my view is, I'm feeling as if, because of my current position as president of the, the Board of Commissioners, and I understand that the way that this committee is constituted, that it is required that the president of the Board of Commissioners sits on this committee. I am feeling as if I need to abstain from this, from voting on this, this particular motion or the complaints or whatever comes out of this, because I feel like it will hinder the ability of the Board of Commissioners to continue to do its work. And I feel like as the president of the Board of Commissioners, I need to be unencumbered in order to do that work. And that is where I stand with regards to this.
So, Steve, do we?
My suggestion,
Is-
if I'm understanding this
Yeah.
correctly, the motion, and the motion which was seconded,
Was not seconded.
no, I thought Jeff said he would second it on those.
On,
Three.
On two
the
through
motion,
four,
as
all
Martin
points.
stated, was not seconded.
Not
Oh,
seconded.
okay. Because you thought there should be that probable cause should be found on all 7.
Correct. So if we want to deal with 2 through 4, where we seem to have some agreement first.
My suggestion is that you have a motion that just says, let's vote on 2 through 4 and see where that goes. And then Jeff can make a motion on 5 through 8 and see where that goes. And then you're dealing with it in 2 motions, but it seems to me that gets you there.
Yeah, okay. So then I would withdraw the first motion, if that's the correct way to do it, and make a new motion that would say, I do find probable cause with regard to complaints 2, 3, and 4.
I second that motion.
And then that we open it up to discussion. You may
Or
have more to
if
say
any.
or not say. Yeah. Maybe you said your piece, but I'm going to go to you first.
No, I think that's.
That's your piece?
I can disagree with the actions in those complaints, but I don't think that it crosses the bar, in my mind,
Yeah.
to ethical violation.
I'll just go next and down the line. So my view of this, we've been roundly criticized a number of times for not finding probable cause with other complaints. And I'm highly sympathetic with Joe's comments that we are not here to adjudicate bad behavior. And that's often what we saw, bad behavior, but it's what didn't rise to, in my view, an ethics complaint. Now, people in the public can disagree, but that's, adults can disagree. But in this case, in these 3 complaints, the code clearly says, no commissioner, the Home Rule Charter clearly says, that no commissioner acting individually shall seek publicly or privately to direct, with emphasis, to direct, the acts of township officials and employees. And in each of these 3 cases, we have an email from Commissioner Booker saying, I direct. I mean, it uses the exact word. I don't know how you can't find that. In my view, that can't be a violation, and there's just no ambiguity. So I obviously made the motion. I would vote in favor of it.
Martin, Steve, help me on this, but direct contradiction of the Home Rule Charter and the use of the word direct. But that's not the same as the ethics code. So this is where I'm having a problem. We have protocol, we have ways we do things, and you went around that.
Yeah.
Was there personal gain? Or was there damage to somebody else, through reputation or anything else? This is the problem with the bar for me on ethics. Home Rule Charter is one thing, ethics violation is something else. So Steve maybe can help me if I'm mixing things up.
The only comment I can make is Section 39-8 of the Code of Ethics actually refers to the Home Rule Charter. And if you have a question as to whether or not your violating the home rule charter, you go to the Board of Ethics for an advisory opinion. So, you know, that appears to indicate that the board has jurisdiction over violations of the charter as well as the code. But that's the only area that, or the only thing in the code that really addresses your concern.
And my view of that is, certainly when I started on this, I had the whole Bayshore incident in mind, and I expected the kind of complaints that would come to us would be situations where there was some personal financial gain involved. That there was one complaint that alluded to that, but it actually wasn't the case. But I do think there can be other ethics violations that don't involve financial gain, and I am very troubled by, we've seen it in other complaints. I think it is very troubling when individual commissioners go directly to township staff and direct them. I think it's inappropriate. I think the Home Rule Charter is correct when it says it's very clear about prohibiting it, and it's very unfair to the township employees. So in my view, it does rise to that level, in my view. Now, what might change is the repercussions as a result of that. I mean, if there's a fraud involved, the person's hopefully going to jail or certainly losing their job. If they were involving some personal gain, like in the Spengler one, if it were true, then maybe there'd be another level. This might be a lower level in terms of the repercussion. Maybe it's censorship, as it was with Nagel when he had a situation with Sherry. So, but I do feel there's just no ambiguity in my mind that it rises to that level. So that's where I am.
Thanks, Martin. Joe, to your point, I can appreciate where you're coming from, and I would agree with you that an error, a mistake, does not necessarily rise to the level of an ethical violation, and we should not configurate the two. So I'll start there with the philosophical approach. But then I'll continue my point that what does rise it to the level of an ethical violation is when you start thinking about things like severity and frequency. And now I'm getting to Martin's point. We have multiple emails here from Commissioner Booker in violation of the charter where he uses the word direct in what I view as an attempt to direct a township employee. So that's where I'm coming from. So hopefully that makes sense. I agree with you. An error should not be an ethical violation, and I hope that's something we're not interpreting as. But in my opinion, I don't believe this was a one-time honest error.
And Lisa, I know it's your intention to abstain, but opportunity for comment or pass? Pass, okay. So with that, we open it to public comment on items 2, 3, and 4. And if you need me to refresh what they all are, I'm happy to do that.
Good evening, Chip Layfield, Wayne. Just before I start, there was quite a bit of news about the, I believe it was Exhibit 6, that was confidential testimony that was released by political operatives Doug McCone and Jim Beaudry, committeeman, Democrats. I thought, I know some of you, and I don't agree with many of your decisions. I would say none of your decisions, but I've always thought you're honorable. I was pretty surprised that you didn't threaten to resign when that came out, because my reading of the Rice report, there were only 3 bodies: this body, the administration, and the police. You're the only ones not getting a paycheck, right? So I think the people that are getting a paycheck aren't going to volunteer that they leak confidential information. You had leverage, and you didn't use it. Instead, you convened, and as though you have some moral certainty, you don't. I don't think can be held in very high standards now. I really don't. Because you had the opportunity to say, we're not doing anything until we find out what's going on, and insist on a real investigation, how that information got out to the public. That said, these issues with Rich, I think, are like ridiculous, totally political. And it kind of echoes what I said with the Elaine Paul Schaefer complaint, that there is an administrative fix, right, a process, which I talked about with her. When these directions come from Rich, the manager has, I believe, an obligation to go to the solicitor and say, Commissioner Booker wants this. Is that consistent with the code? And he would say yes, or he'd say no. Then he goes back and tells Commissioner Booker, solicitor says you can't do this. That's it. That would protect the commissioner. That protects the administration. That protects us and you. That didn't happen, okay? In the case of Elaine, it didn't happen because it appeared the administration was trying to curry favor with the majority. In this case, the exact opposite. That information is leaked out now because Rich isn't popular with the administration. That's obvious. I just think it's, I think it's farcical. I've never seen a complaint like this. Everything, all these emails go right to the township manager. It's, this is a very troubling indictment, not on Rich Booker in my mind, but on the administration. I think it's really troubling what's going on here. Thank you.
So just a quick response. With regard to that exhibit, that relates to complaint 5, 6, somewhere in there. So that will come up later on. It just wasn't relevant for 2, 3, and 4. So that will come up.
Hi, Kelly Martin, Ward 7, and I'd like to reiterate everything that Chip just said. Now, Ms. Borowski, you weren't on the ethics board at the time when they accepted this complaint. I was frankly shocked in October that you were willing to accept it, that it included this confidential document that we still don't know where it came from. But I believe all 4 of you were on the board, and a big spotlight is on you because one of you might be the leaker. We still haven't figured out who the leaker is. So to accept that and then to deliberate on it, and now I'm just disgusted that you would actually say that this actually rises to probable cause and pull the word directed from the Home Rule Charter when there's been so many ethics complaints, and I've listened to you deliberate on them, and you've never chosen that if a commissioner calls for a member of the public to be shot, that word directed wasn't in the complaint, so then that wasn't probable cause, or when Dr. Donato was being stalked basically by a commissioner, that didn't rise to the level of being something that you'd investigate further. There's the Springer investigation, I mean, all of these that, Spinkler, that you found no probable cause, and then tonight you're just deciding to pull the word directed out of the Home Rule Charter and acting as though that is the one thing. I think what Chip said, this is pretty ridiculous, and when you look at that one exhibit and know that that was brought fraudulently to you by someone who leaked it to them, I can't believe that you would take any of this seriously. And so, Dr. Ritz, I have so much respect for everything that you said about this tonight, because this should be excused or thrown out. I think that there was no gross negligence, and when you read the code that you're using for ethics, this doesn't, I don't believe that any of these items rise to the level of further investigation. And I have to say, Ms. Borowski, I have so much respect for you for withdrawing yourself from the conversation, because I know it can become really highly political, and for staying out of the conversation. I never saw that coming, I guess, but I really respect your decision to do that, because I'm sure that can be difficult then going forward, being on a board with someone, so thanks.
Let me just remind everybody in terms of the position we're in with regard to accepting a complaint. There are 2 conditions: that it contains sufficient information and it's sworn and signed. That's it. That's it. If those 2 conditions are met, we accept the complaint. That's the way the rules are written.
And as a board, you couldn't say, I mean, Carfax resigned in mass simply based on the fact that there was going to be a camera. And so you couldn't have gotten together and said, hey, this just doesn't look right. This is 2 weeks before an election, and this doesn't look right. And this person is not willing to provide us with information about where they got the document. There's very few people who could have leaked that document. And so that didn't stand out as...
Can I correct one thing, though? There's constant reference to leaking that document as if this is a document that we actually received. And that's actually not factual.
But that was a part of the last investigation. You had that document.
No.
You never had
that document that is an exhibit is not a document we received.
Right.
It's got at the top testimony of the superintendent, police chief?
Well, because it's in the form
Anybody
of
could
an
write-
email, right? It's in
anybody-
the form of an email with Jim Higgins' name at the top of it.
Anybody can write that. I could write that. But that document, without going into detail about the document that we did receive, because that is confidential, and I feel quite confident that none of us released it, that document is different. That's a big assumption that people are making in the accusations they're making to us about what might have been released by this board. That being said, we all have an obligation of confidentiality. We do. We take it very seriously. Others do not. This McCone-Beaudry complaint is all over the public.
He released it
Of
on
course,
Patch the
he's
day
not,
that he
he's not
submitted it
bound to
you.
the,
He published it.
he's not bound to the same confidentiality provisions that we are.
But the interview with Colorillo was confidential. It
And
was a confidential part of your investigation.
There's a
prior.
document that references that. That document, I will repeat, is not a document we received.
Okay.
And just if I could just clarify one more point, and Steve, please help me out here about the acceptance of the complaint. It was not up to us to accept or decline. As Martin pointed out, if we're presented with a complaint that is properly notarized, we have to accept it. The next step is what we're going through right now, is to decide probable cause or not probable cause. So this is actually the opportunity for us to decline. We are not able to decline when we're first presented with it.
Well, I mean, you are. It just as though if
Well, no-
zoning was presented with something, they could say, hey, wait a second, there's a red flag.
No,
here,
actually,
there's something."
we're not. It's, you know, we're not allowed to do that.
You couldn't
The rules are
write a
clear.
letter to the township or to the Board of
No,
Commissioners
not
and
unless
say-
the township wants to change their rules and change their charter. We, as the Board of Ethics, are bound to accept that, you know, sworn, notarized complaint.
Now, we could
begin to
choose to,
release
we
them.
could choose after that to say, we're not even going to bother with a preliminary inquiry, we think it's not, and then we could come right to the public meeting and we could all verbalize those frustrations. We could do that, but we cannot, as long as it meets those two conditions, refuse to accept the complaint. We can't.
So I guess, just as Chip said, you could just mass resign. That would be, I guess, the way that he put it would have been kind of your only way to,
Well, that would have been an option if, you know, we
guess
wanted to decline the due process and the due diligence of all of this.
Believe me, I've thought about resigning a number of times, that being one of them. You know, I mean, we've been abused, this is, anyone could rightfully say this is a political complaint. Other complaints have been political as well, so you could easily say, why wouldn't we resign at one of those other complaints? I don't.
but to be political and also include a confidential document. I think that's the issue. It's not that it was just political. It's that there's,
Well, again, I mean.
It didn't include a confidential document.
Yeah.
That's the part that everybody misses. That document was not given to the Ethics Board. How it was generated, how it came to be, nobody on this board can speculate. But the Exhibit 6 was never presented to this board. So the board, it's not a question of whether the board leaked confidential information. It never got confidential, that as something that it had to keep confidential. That came from somewhere else, but never was presented to the board, so it was never leaked.
So anyone could type at the top of a piece of paper, submit it to the Board of Ethics confidentially, and start releasing it. Doesn't mean we actually got it.
but the interview, that is contained on that piece of paper was part of an interview that took place during the last ethics
Well,
investigation.
now you get into who we interviewed and what was said during those interviews and what might have been submitted. That is confidential. And so for me to respond in any way to any of that would be violating my confidentiality
So what
provisions.
Martin is saying is that,
Yeah.
that exhibit was a fabrication. So the specimen that we received is confidential, and if you could put them side by side, they're not the same document.
Yeah.
So ours is still in the vault. That one was fabricated and leaked. It was, distributed, but it didn't come from this group, and that can be proven by, they're not the same. Now you say, well,
That makes sense.
could one of us have fabricated it? I guess that's another stretch.
We could do-
To say you took some of the information and then, put it out there. But the idea that particular document that we were privy to went out. It's not the same document.
Okay,
If
I
that's any help,
understand that. That makes
no.
sense. Thank you.
Sorry to pop up again.
That's okay.
Just for clarification, as
Yeah.
you said, Martin, this Exhibit 6, I understand what you're saying, that you don't have that document, but the testimony that is in Exhibit 6, you do have. And that document was composed cut and paste, if I'm correct, right? That's what I got from the
Well,
race
again, I.
Just yes
what-
or no, I don't need a big
No, no,
discussion
I mean,
on it.
I don't even, whom we interview and what is said in those interviews and what documents are provided to us, in my view, we take the confidentiality seriously. So I can say, I think fairly, as Steve did, we didn't receive that document that's in that exhibit. I can say that.
Yeah, you
What I
can say
did
that,
receive,
but
I think
did you
that's not.
receive that testimony? Is it a cut and paste document? That was the implication of the Rice investigation,
Mm-hmm.
that was chopped up from 3 different pages. Am I wrong? You're turning this into a real Kafkaesque episode here.
I'm not trying to
where
do that.
Well, you certainly are.
No, I'm
Acting
not.
like this fellow, this
No,
guy.
I'm not,
we never-
I'm just stating facts. I mean, we've sat here and been berated up here as if this document must have come from us.
It must have.
It didn't.
Well, the original testimony came from either the police, the administration,
Think
or
of,
you. And
think
then
of,
this is a cut and
let's
paste
review.
document.
We are held to a standard of confidentiality, the 5 of us. John Rice probably as well.
Right.
Beyond that, anyone who comes and speaks to us can walk out the door and speak to Linda and say, here's what I said. And they're free to do that. I have no
I
jurisdiction.
don't disagree with that,
Okay.
but
Anybody
I'm-
who submits something to us, submits a complaint or submits something in letter form or submits testimony, is free to take that document and do whatever they want with it. I don't control that.
It is just totally farcical. It is totally farcical. If somebody takes a document, cuts it up, puts the 3 pieces together, and you go, I've never seen it before, but here you saw the original testimony? Come on, seriously.
Seriously, my point is, it didn't come, if somebody does that, is
How
it
do I know
not
it's
their
gonna come
right
from you,
to
Mark?
do
If you
it?
had the document,
Is
you
it-
could have taken, I don't know if you got it through email, you could have cut it up at your own home and put it out. You say it didn't happen. I don't know it didn't happen from
Okay,
you.
so now, that maybe would be the next accusation, that one of us took one of our documents, cut it up to make it look like something different and submitted it. And so how would John Rice in his
Or-
investigation, is he
Or
going
let's put it
to?
this way, whoever gave it to the Democratic operatives that got it, right? They gave them all 3 pages. And that person, whoever he is, supposedly with legal training, decided, well, I'm just going to cut this up so they don't see that it's the same thing. That's what I'm saying happened.
I think fairly accurate,
Okay.
fairly accurate. I think that brings us to a vote, if I'm correct, on a motion on item 2.
Can I just raise one more point?
Yeah.
And, the one thing I want to point out, that this is not a vote on the ethicality or lack thereof, 2, 3, or 4. I want to make that clear. This is not an opinion on that. This is simply an opinion on whether or not there is probable cause and enough information to proceed to that step. So I just want to make sure that that nuance is not lost. Thank you.
And this board has never once said move to the next level, correct?
That's not entirely, we've never had a motion that passed unanimously. We've had votes that were split, where people had different opinions, yes. Okay, so that brings us to the vote on items 2, 3, and 4. The motion is that there is probable cause, and that has been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
1 abstention.
Sorry about that.
So that motion passes 2 to 1.
Now that motion fails because it did not get a majority vote, given that Ms. Borowski, yeah, so
Fails,
that
okay.
fails. So now
Okay.
you go on to the, I think there was Jeff wanted to make a motion on 5.
5 through 8.
Well, I don't want to waste this board's or the constituents' time anymore. I think Lisa has made it clear that she's going to abstain going forward, and I think Joe has already stated his opinion, and I don't believe that conceptually changes just because we're talking about different complaints, allegations,
Yeah.
which would lead us, again, to a, at best, 2-2 deadlock. and it fails.
Okay.
So
So-
I will
No,
not,
then there would be no finding of probable cause, and the
Well, I
preliminary
will-
inquiry would be closed.
I will just decline to make a motion.
Yeah,
So do we then make a motion that there's no, that there is?
you don't have to make a
Closing
motion. You know, let's think about this out loud. I think there's got to be a motion, and maybe the motion is, we find nothing on 5, 6, 7, and, or
Yeah, 5 through 8.
5 through 8. But I think there has got to, that door has got to be closed. You can't just leave them
Leave them open.
sitting there. So there has to be some kind of a motion on 5 through 8, you know, whether it's I find probable cause, I don't find probable cause, or whatever. I think that there's got to be a motion, just so each one of the allegations in the
Is dealt
complaint
with.
has been covered.
So I'll make a motion that I do not find probable cause on items 5 through 8.
Second.
Second, okay. Open for discussion? Joe? Nope, same. So in my view, this is where Joe and I are in agreement. I don't believe we're here to moderate bad behavior. The complaints 5 and 6 relate to Mr. Booker's son coming and requesting a police report. If that were my son, and I hope Mr. Booker took him out to the woodshed and you know, properly admonished him for what is appropriate behavior in public, but I can't find any evidence that he was directed to do any of this and that this was at Mr. Booker's beckoning. So I just can't, I can't find those rising to the level. 7 is the sticker. Now, on the car, there's a sticker on the car, ostensibly so that he doesn't get a ticket or he doesn't get pulled over if he's speeding. Lisa, do you have a sticker? No. Does any other commissioner have a sticker? No. Okay, so again, but this is bad behavior. I mean, to me, this is similar to the town hall meetings that you guys all hold right in political season, ostensibly to inform your public, but they're clearly political. If commissioners should get stickers, there should be a vote, public vote here, and you all decide you're going to get stickers, and off you go. But for one commissioner to go and say, I need a sticker so that I can park in a lower parking lot in a special place, or I'm not going to get a ticket, is just bad behavior, but not an ethics violation. So I would hope Mr. Booker would just take this stupid thing off his car and apologize and move on. But that's where I am on that one.
Just a brief comment, without rehashing what we've already discussed. Allegations 5 through 7, in my opinion, are quite frankly and quite explicitly preferential treatment. They can't be interpreted any other way, and that's why I would view as probable cause. Thank you.
And then 8 is the broad one, where, I'm just going back. Public officials this is the very broad one, are bound to observe in their official acts the highest standards of morality and to discharge faithfully the duties of their office regardless of personal consideration. So it's very broad. There's not a specific event. In my view, that's political. It was filed by political operatives in days before the election. This is where I draw the line. I would agree that Mr. Booker's behavior at times would be not something that I would approve of, but it's not something that, it's bad behavior. It's similar to Mr. Nagel with Mr. Sherry. Mr. Sherry thinks it should have been an ethics violation. I think it's bad behavior, and I don't think we're here to adjudicate that, so I don't think this rises to the level, and I would vote no. Okay, with that, oh, public comment, sorry.
Chip Layfield for third and final time. I do want to thank you guys for doing this. I wish you had stood on integrity and demanded for the public, really, because no one just getting the paycheck is going to step up. And you were the only leverage we had on this issue to find out actually what's going on. I don't think the commissioner is going to spend money to do an investigation, but maybe they will. I doubt it, though. But at any rate, I do appreciate that you come in and work, and I do know some of you, and I know you do have integrity. That's why I was so surprised. I know Doug McCone. I've known him for years, and I thought he was a person of honor, too. So it's opened my eyes a little bit. Just real quickly, you know, moving forward, Lisa, I hope that you give some thought to the idea that the administration has a responsibility here. They have a responsibility. When commissioners are asking for stuff day in, day out, that's not unusual. So there has to be a process on the administration. When there's a question, they don't put it on their desk until right before the election and hand it to political operatives, if that's what happened. That shouldn't happen. It should go to the solicitor who can tell you it's consistent or inconsistent with the charter. That protects the administration. That protects the employees. That protects the commissioners. And you guys don't have any work. You can stay home, watch TV.
Be
That
watching the
process, I mentioned it with
76ers.
the lane. It was the same problem with the lane. All those could have been decided at an administrative level. With the decal, it used to be the township commissioners got a badge, got like a leather holder and a real, shield that showed that they were commissioners, that allowed them to park where they wanted to park. I do decals. I'm an artist, and decals you get 20 for $5, 20 for $10. They should all be provided to the commissioners so they can park in that lower lot. The fact that they weren't distributed by the administration is, again, troubling, because it looks like it was a setup so we could use this against Rich Booker. I realize Rich isn't popular with the administration. I got that. But still, this shouldn't be going on. This isn't in our interest to have this sort of animosity that we're seeing in this complaint. I think it's a first in this township, and I hope it's the last. Thank you.
Thank you.
Am I able to respond?
yeah.
I just want to, there has been a lot come up about Mr. Booker and Mr. Booker's behavior. I just want to stress that personalities and attitudes had nothing to do and should have nothing to do with the workings of this board. We would treat Commissioner Booker like any individual that we have to deal with. And I just want to ensure everybody, and Commissioner Booker too, that there is no ill will. There, at least by the members of this board. I mean, that seems to be something that's being implied, and I just want to set the record straight. That's absolutely not the case.
And we are very aware of the political issues involved and very aware of not wanting to be used as a pawn in that process back and forth. So anyway, any other public comment? No. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
No.
No.
You have to have a vote on that motion.
Have a vote? Oh, didn't we do that? I apologize. I thought we did. Do I have a vote on the motion that there's no probable cause with regard to items 5 through 8? All in favor that there is no probable cause? Aye. All against?
No.
And one abstention. Same result. With,
Well, actually, if there's, the motion for no probable cause just failed. I don't want to
Yeah,
get
but,
semantics.
so I think the bottom line here is that there has not been a finding that probable cause exists with regard to Mrs. McCone and Bally's allegations that the Radnor Township Code of Ethics was violated. Therefore, the preliminary inquiry is closed and the inquiry is terminated.
and we write a letter to that effect to all the parties.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I just say one thing?
Yep.
So, gentlemen, I know I'm very new to this. I've really only been to one meeting with you, or two. This makes two. I would just like to thank you for your work. I know that this is not an easy job. This is not an easy seat to sit in. So I just want to thank you, and you have handled yourselves, I think, with the utmost professionalism, and you've also demonstrated, I think, what we need here in our township is a better ability for our committees and our Board of Commissioners to work together. We take a vote, we move on. And I believe that that's the way, it should work. And I think that if we can get to that place, with many of our committees, we won't have the issues that we have. We need to take a vote and move on. So I want to thank you very much for your time, for allowing me to be part of it, very small part of it. And, thank you for your work, really. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now a motion.
Now, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Actually, didn't abstain.